Hello everyone, and welcome to this year's UN World Autism Awareness Day. I'm Charlotte Valeur, the Global Chair of the Institute of Neurodiversity. I'm myself autistic and have ADHD, and I'm also a passionate advocate for equality for neurominorities. The Institute of Neurodiversity is humbled, grateful and delighted to be working with the UN on this event again this year. It was great to do it last year and to bring a number of autistic people to deliver their thoughts on autism last year. And again this year, we're having another group of all autistic people, both us who are organizing it in the background and the people participating. Our focus this year is to ensure we hear the voices of autistic people from every corner of the world. We therefore split the event into various regions of the world. Each region had the choice and freedom to decide how to deliver a piece about autism in their region for this event. The regions were led by amazing neurodiversity advocates from the regions, and the regions were Asia and the Pacific, Latin America, Northern America and the Caribbean, Oceania, Europe and Africa. Thank you so much for all the work and dedication to you and your committees and the people participating, making this an amazing event. Being autistic is still vastly misunderstood around the world, but through so many autistic advocates speaking up and sharing their stories of lived experience, we are moving the dial and changing the narrative to be one that is written and told by us. We were always here, but we are becoming a lot more visible than we have ever been. A huge number of us were never diagnosed or had full awareness of our neuro-differences. This is changing rapidly. Some, of course, believe the numbers are suddenly growing, that we have an epidemic have we even heard about for neurodiversity. This is not true. And I think we all know that. We were always here, but so many of us were hidden. Becoming visible and coming together in many networks around the world can reduce our feelings of loneliness, of being aliens in the world, of being excluded from society, friends, and even families. When I speak to autistic people from many different countries, I'm always so delighted to find that we connect very easily. There's no judgment or specific ways to be. We accept each other as we are across nationalities and across cultures. It gives me an amazing feeling of the existence of a neurominority culture that uniquely binds us together around the world. I hope today's event will show you, all of you that are watching, how our global voice is growing and how we look for all of us to work together to make the world more neuro-inclusive so we can thrive and prosper equally to the neuro-majority. I hope you enjoy the event and that it gives you a deeper insight into our lives. I also hope it inspires you all to become an active part of the neurodiversity movement around the world. Thank you so much for being here today.
Hello everyone, I'm Sylvan Ruthenberg and I'm the global lead of the Institute of Neurodiversity UN. I'm autistic and I also identify as VAST. VAST is short for Various Attention Stimuli Traits and a modern strength-based term for what we commonly know as ADHD. Today, let me be your guide throughout all inhabited regions of this planet with all-autistic cross-cultural collaboration that knows no borders. Starting out with the Africa region and country representation from Nigeria and South Africa.
Greetings everybody from very sunny Cape Town in South Africa, Africa. I'm Claire Fourie. I am a director or the director of the Neurodiversity Foundation here in Cape Town, South Africa. We are an NPO, a non-profit organization that helps children and other very wonderful, very special human beings with neurodiversity and autism in particular. And yeah, we are very proud of our organization and the work that we do. And I'm very proud to be the director of our organization. I'm a psychologist, I'm a PhD candidate, have a very special interest in autism and neurodiversity and in research and in empowering a lot of our individuals, our special humans, our families. I'm a strong advocate. I believe in empowering other people to be the best versions of themselves, and empowering communities and other individuals to empower others. I could go on forever about this. I'm going to keep it brief. I love what I do. I love my job. I love working with everybody in this community and with everybody. I have the extreme honor and privilege to be presenting to you, to be the moderator of our beautiful panel, to be introducing these beautiful individuals that have chosen to share their stories and their journeys with you, everybody around the world, and to share a little piece of their lives and their journey, their dreams, their struggles, their overcomings. It's such a privilege to have been part of their stories and to be able to be part of their sharing with you. I hope you enjoy being part of this and hearing their journeys and their stories. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for hearing more from us in Africa. And I look forward to many more collaborations and to hearing more from everybody around the world. Thank you for joining us.
I'm Karen. I'm an autistic woman and the mother of autistic children. And I work in television, and the PhD research that I'm doing is into autistic representation. I was diagnosed late in life, which is often the case for women. And I think that a big part of why some people don't get the diagnoses early on is because we have certain stereotypes and stigmas about who is autistic and what autism looks like. A lot of what we see is white men, white male representation, and a lot of what we don't see are women, people of color, LGBTQI plus representation. I think it's so important. I think that the representation we see does the PR work for us, whether we like it or not, and speaks to the world about what autism is and what it isn't. It's so important that autistic people get more involved in their own representation, like we're seeing today. Nothing about us without us. It's essential that autistic people are allowed to voice their own opinions, their own perspectives, and to be seen as unique, different, multifaceted individuals that each have their own experiences in this world, their own challenges, and their own gifts and skills and talents that they can bring. I think the more we understand and embrace that, the more we're going to be able to curate a world which is accepting and inclusive for everybody on the autism spectrum, so that the world and society around us stops being a stumbling block for us. We have enough to deal with ourselves. We need the world to be able to embrace and support us for who we are. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Karen. It's amazing. I love the quote that you gave us, the nothing about us without us. I think it's brilliant. I love it. It's perfect. It fits in so well with what we need, everything that we need to say, because that's exactly it. And so much of what we need to educate so many other people and professionals, so many other people around the world. I love the talk about representation. It's so important, and late diagnosis is such a big thing, especially with underrepresented populations, as you were saying, with us females, with gender non-conforming people, with LGBT plus community. It's brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us and a little bit of your family's story. Thank you for being part of our panel.
Thank you for the opportunity. And the more we can take time to listen to autistic people and prioritize their voices, the better.
I also just want to go back to what you said about the PR work. And I know we've had individual discussions, Karen, about how it's up to us as this generation to part the way forward for the next generation, and how much that's sort of our responsibility in some ways. So I think what you said was really beautiful there.
Absolutely. You know, I think no one else can tell your story. That's what we're here today for. And so as scary and intimidating as it might seem sometimes, every time you're able to voice your reality and your experience, somebody else is going to be able to identify with that, to see themselves, to respond to that. And that's going to change and affect and impact their lives.
Absolutely. Thank you, Karen. Thank you. And we look forward to the brilliant and amazing work you're doing with your PhD and all your PR work and your activism and everything in that space and beyond that. So thank you. And then up next, we have Raphael. So Raph, over to you.
Thank you, Claire. My wife, my son, and I are all autistic and ADHD. As a neurodiverse adult, I find the most insight and recovery for myself comes from helping to ensure that my child and other children, when possible, are listened to and heard in many ways that most autistic adults never were, and many of us still aren't. I think one of the most challenging things about being autistic is that it is precisely when we most need to ask for help that doing so becomes most challenging. The result is that when people do try to help us, they can often end up making things worse. For example, my 5-year-old child uses a dummy. It is a special object that he cares for dearly, and in return, it provides him with a stim and fidget toy, smell, taste, and touch sensory stimulation, and helps him to avoid talking when he doesn't want to or isn't able to. It is a critical accommodation that plays a key role in his mental health. And yet, there is this constant pressure to abandon it, a clear perception that we as his parents are too lax to take it away from him, a clear perception that we are harming him in the long run, a clear perception that he'll need to get rid of it eventually, and the sooner the better. There is only one response to this. As my child often says, "Dad, I think people just need to learn more about autism." It appears as though many healthcare providers, parents, schools, and society as a whole believes it has turned over a new page on neurodiversity, that we finally cracked it, that it is now well understood, well medicated, and well accommodated. Isn't this something we've thought before? How sure are we that we've actually got it right this time? And what are the consequences for us not having it right? And how many autistic people would agree that we've cracked neurodiversity? I believe we really need to start paying deep attention to our children. We need to listen when they speak verbally and when they speak through behavior. We must start making space and time for their needs, not as defined in some textbook or an article we read, or even in the latest research presented at a conference we attended, but as defined by the person who knows them best, themselves.
Amazing. Thank you, Raph. I must say I've got goosebumps after hearing that. Goosebumps everywhere. You know, if we can take what a 5-year-old is saying, you know, saying, I think people just need to learn more about autism. That is so profound. That just says everything. It's amazing. And I like what you said about critical accommodations. And that's absolutely it. That is so profound. Critical accommodations. And it is just that. And what I was taking from your story is how much judgment and shame there is that we feel as autistic individuals, and that often parents feel, you know, that's inflicted on us from society and from other people that don't understand because there's not enough education and understanding around. So I think we should all listen to what your son is saying. People just need to learn more about autism. They need to take the time to understand. I think that's, we need to all take that message away and to pay attention to their needs. And like you said, listen to the verbal stuff, listen to the non-verbal stuff, pay attention. Those are very important messages. Thanks, Raphael. Thank you for sharing your story and for sharing your family story.
Pleasure.
All right. Okay, up next, we have Elsie and David, and Elsie's going to be sharing some of David's story, and David's joining us as well. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves to everybody.
My name is Elsie Akerele. David Akerele is my son. who has autism, and I take care of other children with autism. I have 17 of them in the home. My journey with the autistics has been a while. It is important that in our local environment in Nigeria, we need to make people to know more about it. Parents and families take it as taboo to have children with such disabilities. I have to self-study by myself to know what to do with my son. And for the past 30 years, he has developed and achieved a lot for himself by his own efforts and my support. He has gone through the music school, and he has qualified as a drummer and a pianist. It is quite rare. A lot of people around us don't believe it is possible. A lot of parents see children with autism as if they have spiritual attacks. The ignorance about the condition is much around us. I have been able to put my own effort, and by such effort, enlightened a lot of people who are able to come around us. Autism is not a disease, and it is not infectious. It is a condition to be managed. And the children that I take care of, after some years, they become useful. 2 of them had been able to marry regular men who come for them. We want people to know that they are friendly when accepted. They crave acceptance, and that is why a lot of people don't understand them, because of the first move they expect from them, which does not come forth. David has been a project for my life, and a successful project, I must say. Thank you.
Elsie, thank you, David. Thank you for sharing that beautiful story. It's very inspiring. Also it made me quite emotional, actually, you know, just thinking about the misinformation out there, and when you were speaking about how autism is often misperceived as, you know, spiritual attacks and, you know, all sorts of things, and how it's often very pathologized as something extremely negative, and, you know, something that we have to fix, or something that's unfixable. And like you said, that's absolutely not the case. And, you know, I think you said it so perfectly. I don't think I could say it any better than how you said it. So thank you for that. It was absolutely beautiful to hear that. And I just loved what you said, and how you framed it around that there's so much ignorance around autism. Yes. And how hard you've been working to create so much more awareness, and to educate people and enlighten them, and just bring about all of this change. I love what you're doing over there. It's amazing. So thank you for that. Thank you for changing so many people's lives, and thank you to David for being the inspiration there. And I'm sure he's inspired so many people as well. Certainly inspired me.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
And God will bless you.
Thank you.
Oh, and you
God
too, David. God bless you too.
Amen.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You're welcome.
Beautiful.
Thank
So
you.
beautiful. All right. And then next up, we have Eloise. Or Eloise.
Hi, I'm Eloise. I'm autistic and I'm ADHD. And my journey with autism started about 3 years ago. I was telling my psychologist about yet another social situation that had ended in disaster. I was complaining I didn't understand people, I didn't get it, why am I always in these situations? And that's when I was asked if I think I might be on the autism spectrum. And it kind of blindsided me. I wasn't sure. I was given some resources, and I spent the next few days just going back and forth of this all makes sense, it fits, and then being like, I don't know, can I be? I had a lot of imposter syndrome and struggled with that. Luckily, I am one of the few who have access to diagnosis, and I was able to go through that process. And yeah, I was very lucky. And afterwards, I still felt like I didn't understand what was going on. I didn't realize that I couldn't wrap my head around it. So I decided to start researching it, and basically it became my special interest. And I did my honors thesis on the lived experiences of autistic adults who have been diagnosed later in life. And yeah, it was very exciting. I was very excited about it. And then I hit a wall when I failed the proposal aspect of my research. And I suddenly realized that there was a lot of misconception and misunderstanding about autism in the society that I lived in. So with the help of my supervisor, we really dived into the social issues, looking at Nothing About Us Without Us, as Karen said. We also really dived into the critique of the medical model, really looking at it's not a disease, it's nothing like that. It's a normal difference, human difference in how the brain works. So eventually I was able to do my honors research and passed my honors degree. And now I'm doing my master's degree, looking further into that, into now you have your diagnosis, how does it impact the rest of your life, how do you move forward? And it's interesting to understand how much fear there is surrounding disclosure because of how society views autism and what that means for an individual, especially with at work, you don't want to be treated differently, but there are supports and accommodations that would make your life easier and your work output better. But that's often just stopped by the misinformation. And I think it's really important that researchers and other autistics who are publicly speaking about what it actually means to be autistic is so important, because that will help us to eventually educate the rest, and we'll move forward and actually have a true understanding and perhaps better accommodations and supports.
Amazing. Thank you, Eloise. Beautifully said. Love it all. I think that a lot of what you're saying about the imposter syndrome is so real for I think all of us. Don't want to speak for everybody, but I know certainly for me, imposter syndrome comes up quite a bit, and you know, the misconceptions. And I'm just wondering, and I'm thinking about what you were talking about with your research around the critique of the medical model. And when you were talking about it, I was just thinking about how so many of us and so many of the people that I work with have a lot of trauma, and I've read up about it quite a bit too, a lot of trauma from the medical system and working with people who are misinformed. And I know you touched on it earlier when you were speaking about it. And I just wondered if you wanted to talk about that a little bit more, and if there's things that you might have found through your research and maybe through your own lived experience. And I know you did say that we need to advocate more, and there needs to be more autistic voices coming through and educating the medical professionals.
Yeah, so the amount of education a normal general practitioner doctor gets on autism is very little, and perhaps a bit outdated. So personally, I've had an experience of disclosing to a doctor because I felt it was relevant in what was going on with me, and I got blanked, completely blanked. There was no response to what I had said at all. And that's not an isolated incident. Through my research, I've realized that a lot of people, when they've disclosed to medical professionals, that they get dismissed and get told, no, they're overreacting, it's overdiagnosed and whatnot. And it's extremely harmful. And that whole imposter syndrome, it just makes it worse. And your self-confidence goes down, and it just worsens your mental health because you're just not being heard, you're being dismissed, and then you feel the need to mask even more. And that's just, it ruins your energy.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There is a lot of trauma there, and I think we've got some work to do in that regard. But I do see things changing slowly but surely, but we do need to do a lot more education there. Thank you, Eloise. I so look forward to your research, and I hope it's going to go further than masters, and I look forward to lots of publications coming out and a lot of the work you're going to do in the community.
Thanks, Claire.
All right, guys, we've only got 4 minutes left on the recording, so we're going to stop the recording, and then Alia and I are going to record hers, and then the other family, we're going to just link them up to the video recording as well.
My name is Demilade Onofalucho. I am 36 years old, living on my autism spectrum, intelligence disability. My highest educational certificate is WAAD, West African School Certificate. I am in Nigeria. I work as an office assistant in Nigeria, French Language Village Ventures, Badagry, Nigeria. I imbibe honesty, integrity, and living a righteous life. I will appreciate a better exposure to improve himself.
And now over to Alia. Alia, please could you share your beautiful story with us?
I'm Alia Boli, and I am a late diagnosed autistic woman. And I'm also the proud mom of 2 incredible autistic sons. And my journey into the world of neurodiversity and autism really began while navigating my eldest son's diagnosis. And as children are gifts, all children are our gifts. I believe that my son, and through his journey, he really held a mirror up for me. And I started realizing that I started seeing a lot of me in his journey. And for years, I felt this deep sense of being misunderstood, especially in the workplace, entering the workforce, and being exposed to actually more than one toxic work environment, which I never really understood why. But those experiences triggered my anxiety and my depression. And of course, juggling the role of a mom, a wife, and working in corporate became too overwhelming for me. And so the disconnect I felt with the world led to physical pain and an anxiety diagnosis. And I always wondered and reflected on why things seem so easy for everyone else and for others and other women around me. And I just couldn't understand why it was so hard for me to keep things together. But today, now that I have my diagnosis and my family has the diagnosis, I'm passionate about advocating for neurodiversity. And I'm doing that. I'm currently putting my journey in a book, and I'm hoping that other women and other mothers can find a connection in my story. Somewhere in my journey, they can resonate. I'm also the founder of an organization called Her Career Journey, which is a women's empowerment company. And I founded this organization before my diagnosis, actually. And I think the reason why it's called her career journey is because a lot of my challenges that, a lot of the challenges that I face in the workforce, in the workplace, was found there. I always struggled working within a team. And so I think that there's still a lot of work that needs to be done in the world of corporate. And the message is really that autism doesn't fit a single mold. And my story and my journey is really about, and what I would like to spread is that autistic voices need to be in every place where decisions are being made, whether it's in politics, in government, in the boardroom, in the classrooms, within the home. And inclusivity really does need to, it's really about having that autistic voice. And it means that we need to start recognizing and valuing diverse experiences. So yeah, so let's champion inclusivity and diversity, and ensuring that those frameworks that we are setting up in the workplace, branding and our awareness campaigns, let's make sure that it also embraces the unseen disabilities in all aspects of our lives. Yeah, so my diagnosis isn't really about, when I speak up about it, it's not about seeking pity or wanting to put on a label and wanting to put myself in a box. It's really, it is a revelation to me. And our recognizing and knowing that there is a scientific reason for why I am the way I am, why my sons are the way they are, and how they experience the world around them, how I experience the world around me. This now challenges me to empower other women. And it also makes me realize that others are maybe not as fortunate as I am in getting the help, the support that is so needed for autistic children and individuals, and for women that are navigating this journey. So there is a call for help, a call for community awareness, appreciation especially, and also acceptance.
Thank you, Alia.
Thank you.
That was beautiful. And I love the call to action. I think that is very impactful. We do need a strong call to action in all our communities, because that's where the need is. We need these community-led programs and calls, and we need that for impactful change. That's how we're going to get things going, you know, especially on our continent in Africa. And I mean, we can only speak for our continent. We can't speak for other continents, and that's what we need. And absolutely agree with you. I think, you know, in terms of, you were talking about inclusivity in the different spaces, and we need autistic voices and you know, other disability voices to be heard in all sectors, in all policy-making situations, in schools, in workspaces, you know, everywhere. I'm not going to even try and list everything, because I'm going to leave somebody out somewhere, and I don't want to do that. But we need all our voices to be heard in all those settings. And, you know, our unseen disabilities, you know, we get impacted quite a lot too. So beautiful story. I can't wait to read your book and to read about the journey. And I think it's going to inspire a lot of people. It's going to help a lot of people feel heard. It's going to empower them. It's going to help people make sense of things. And it's going to be beautiful, I'm sure. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you, Clee. Thank you so much.
So, as I'm sure in many parts of the world, autism and neurodiversity is very under-researched, under-resourced. We all know this. And there are many drives around the world to empower research, to find more funding for research, so that we can understand more about what we can do, more about our condition, understand more about the different phenotypes, the presentations, how it presents in our different individuals, in our different communities. In Africa in particular, our presentation is very different to what would be perceived in the Western world, how we refer to it. We have many different cultures in Africa, many different religions, many different belief systems as well, and this impacts on the way that autism and neurodevelopmental conditions are perceived in different communities and how they are seen, how they are understood. And this therefore impacts on the diagnosis of these conditions and how individuals receive them, how families respond to them, how clinicians, how doctors, psychologists, teachers, other community members respond to these diagnoses, and how access to intervention, to resources, to support systems, to advocacy, how that is then impacted because of the way that we see the presentation of these different conditions is. And there is so much work going on in Africa. There are so many individuals, as you would see in our panel discussion, that are doing so many things, and so many things individually and together and within communities. And we are so grateful for the funders that are putting money into the research that we have, and the ongoing research. And there are many exciting things coming up. There's so much more that we need to do. There is so much more we need to understand, because a lot of the information we have is very centered on different presentations and different ways of thinking about autism that doesn't always pertain to how we present here in Africa and how it is in our different cultural beliefs and in our different cultural systems, our different communities. And this varies across the different regions in Africa. I've seen it in my own research, I've seen it in my clinical practice, I've seen it within our NPO that I spoke about, Neurodiversity Foundation. I've seen it in so many places. It is fascinating. I love this field, this domain, this way of being. It is amazing. I'm neurodiverse myself, and I find it incredible. Not to take away from the immense struggles many of us go through, the difficulties that we have, the struggles to fit in, the struggles to access services, to access interventions. But we do have so much to give back, so much to give to the world. We have so much to say. We just need that extra backing sometimes, and that extra access to support, the extra access to services, the advocacy, the intervention. And sometimes it's up to us. Sometimes we need to stand up and say, this is what we need, this is what we want, this is the help that we need, this is the support that we need. So this is my call out to everybody and my plea to everyone. Let's ask for that help. Let's ask for it. Let's say this is what we need. We all deserve it. We all need to ask for it. We all need to advocate for ourselves and for other people. So let's do it. Let's take it, guys. Let's advocate. Over and out from Cape Town, South Africa.
The next stop in our journey will be the Asia region, with country representation from China, Hong Kong, India, Israel, as well as Pakistan. Please enjoy.
Hi, I am Joel Godi, coming to you from India. In many communities, stigma and misconceptions still surround autism spectrum disorder. How can we combat these barriers to ensure individuals with autism receive the support and understand they need to thrive. Today, I come before you to address a matter that lies very close to my heart. The urgent need to dismantle the barriers that hinder autistic individuals from receiving the support and understanding they deserve to thrive. Despite the commendable progress made in raising awareness and fostering acceptance, stigma and misconceptions continue to cast shadows over many communities. So today, I present to you a roadmap, a multifaceted approach to tear down these barriers and pave the way towards a more inclusive society. So first, let's begin with education, the cornerstone of our endeavor. Misconceptions often stem from a lack of understanding about what autism truly entails. By disseminating accurate information about autism, its characteristics, strengths, and challenges, we can shatter myths and cultivate empathy. This educational effort must span across domains, reaching schools, workplaces, healthcare settings, and beyond. Through tailored training programs, we can equip educators, healthcare professionals, and employers with the knowledge and tools needed to support autistic individuals effectively. Next, autism stands as our next imperative. Autistic individuals, alongside their families and allies, possess a formidable voice, a voice that can challenge stigma and champion acceptance. By amplifying their voices, we can catalyze shifts in societal perceptions and policies, steering them towards greater inclusivity. Representation further bolsters our efforts. Media, entertainment, and advertising must strive to depict diverse portrayals of autism, showcasing the richness and diversity of experiences within the autistic community. Positive representation fosters a sense of belonging and acceptance among autistic individuals. Empathy forms the bedrock of our mission. Encouraging empathy entails promoting understanding, patience, and compassion towards autistic individuals. Individuals such as peer mentoring and awareness campaigns can facilitate empathy building experiences. Additionally, we must actively challenge stereotypes and harmful language. Language wields tremendous power. It shapes attitudes. By adopting respectful language when discussing autism, we can dismantle negative stereotypes and nurture a culture of acceptance. Inclusion transcends mere tolerance. It demands action. It means actively creating environments where autistic individuals can participate fully and authentically. This involves implementing accessible physical spaces, sensory-friendly accommodations, and inclusive social activities across schools, workplaces, and recreational facilities, and also public spaces. Policies and practices should be enacted to accommodate the diverse needs of autistic individuals, fostering environments where everyone can thrive. Collaboration emerges as our final indispensable tool. Government agencies, advocacy organizations, community groups, and individuals must come together to drive this change. Through partnerships, we can address systemic establishment of robust support networks. Families, caregivers, and autistic individuals benefit immensely from access to support groups, peer groups, and community resources. These networks offer practical assistance, emotional support, and a sense of belonging. So let us commit ourselves to this noble endeavor, a journey guided by education, advocacy, empathy, inclusion, and collaboration. Together, let us shape a society where autistic individuals are not just celebrated but also accepted for their unique contributions. Let us build a world where everyone, regardless of neurodiversity, can thrive and flourish. Thank you.
Hi, I am Mordi from Israel. I am autistic. I am a doctor, researcher in autism, and I am also an activist for autistic rights. Thank you for having me. It's an honor. I'm a bit surprised about the topics. And once again, profound autism is underrepresented. And in counterparties, gender dysphoria does be represented, even though there is no clear link found between it and ASD, autism. I guess political agenda and overrepresentation of high-functioning autistics led to these choices. On one side trying to mask, and on the other side being a proud autistic trying to get the whole society changed for you are obstacles. The autistic is like a tourist, arriving in a foreign country not knowing the language and the culture. On one hand, he can't fake being like the local people. On the other hand, he can't demand that the whole country adapt to him. Both sides, the tourist and the country, have to make an effort. Tolerance from the local guys to the autistic and respect from the autistic for the place he's visiting or living in. This question has an underlying bias, assuming that societal norms, cultures, and traditions are inherently wrong. The social norms in Western cultures are excellent for autistics because an honest attempt is made to accept them, to introduce them to the workforce, to provide them social and health services that help them to conduct themselves independently. And all this in contrast to the norms of other countries where the stigma is great, where there are no services and autistics encounter many more difficulties. In Western cultures, as Israel, social norms and traditional definition of gender are not problematic, and the focus should be on creating practical opportunities rather than philosophical discussion of social changes. With no social norms, there are no societies and no cultures. Autistics, transgender people, Chinese in Africa, African in Russia are minorities. Minorities can't and should not impose their way of life on local norms and majority. In Western countries, minorities have rights, and they have rights because they are minorities and different from the norm. If you are an autistic and impose your way of life on the norm, pretending that you are by yourself the norm, you can't pretend anymore to get health services and social services because you are the norm. And those services are given to people in the narrows. Social norms must be tolerant of autistics and transgender people. On the other hand, autistics and transgender people should respect the social norms and the majority, and not impose their views. If autistics' rights and transgender people rights fights are so important for some activists, I suggest them to fight in countries where the stigma is great. This is courage, and there is absolute misery for these people. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you for providing the opportunity to speak at United Nations World Autism Acceptance Day 2024. I'm Faiza Rahman, founder and CEO of Neurodiversity Pakistan. With Autism Acceptance, Pakistan still have a long journey in order to meet United Nations sustainable goals. The major burnout for the people with autism is a crisis of mental health challenges, whether it is access to diagnosis, it could be caused not enough trained medical professionals, lack of acceptance and recognition, also the stigma attached to it. Although I myself got late diagnosed, but I feel privileged and empowered to address issues related to my well-being and happy to ask for accommodations where required. From demographic point of view, there are things being done for children at provincial level, which is still at very initial stage. Despite of this, autistic individuals still have to face discrimination in inclusive setup, as most of the teaching staff is not trained to provide necessary support. That's another big challenge. Autistic and neurodivergent workforce management should be recognized and properly trained for job readiness. This could happen with early diagnosis, training of managerial and human resource staff, keeping things confidential if required due to stigma and lack of acceptance. There should be a mandatory training for all the workforce for inclusion and workplace bullying attached to it. We have various stereotypes attached, and mostly women population is discouraged to embrace their neurodiversity due to arranged marriage culture and again lack of acceptance. Although what I have realized that trans community have far better realization and more vocal about their diagnosis. Men are still reluctant to embrace neurodiversity due to workplace discrimination and not to get bullied by their peers. Besides systematic inequalities in accessing healthcare, education, employment, community resources, public places, and workplace, there is a global dilemma. If any autistic or neurodivergent person wants to travel, especially overseas, they have to go through certain discrimination, and mostly reasonable adjustments are not considered by immigration authorities. I personally urge and request United Nations to streamline these processes by considering situation of underdeveloped countries to provide ease of travel. Access to justice is another big issue that we need to address on national basis. Autistic people are not lesser than other neuromajority. It's all about giving them required tools, early intervention, acceptance, and encouragement. A little polite request from this world that please stop staring us if you recognize someone different and autistic. This gives us tons of social anxiety. Thank you.
So, hello, my name is June Durkee. I am a current graduate student at Mercer University, where I got my undergrads in hospitality management back in 2021, where I was part of the AIM program, the Autism Initiative at Mercyhurst, which is really what drove me to want to come back here to Mercyhurst and actually have my college education here. So a little bit about myself. I was born in China in the Hunan province, but I was then adopted by two loving mothers who raised me in Tacoma Park, Maryland, along with an older sister that was also born and adopted from China, just like me. So a little bit about my educational background is I was never taught about my autism until I was just about to start looking into colleges. Between junior and senior year is when I was finally told about my autism, like nuance and stuff. But looking back, I definitely think that my mom's had glimpses of that showed some sort of autism or Asperger traits, where like being tidy, orderliness. I had a lot of speech therapy back in the day, but it just never came across their mind to sit down with me and actually teach me about what is Asperger's and what is autism, until they discovered the AIM program at Mercyhurst here, which again is the Autism Initiative at Mercyhurst, that was founded by Brad McGarry, who was the one who really introduced me to Mercyhurst and really sold the AIM program. And they have what really helped transition me was going through the summer program that they sponsor called Creates. And that was a college readiness 3-week program where it gave me first experience, hands-on exposure of what college life might encounter and stuff before I actually was in college. So I was still in high school. So that was a good water testing and stuff. So which I loved so much that got accepted to Mercer's and obviously the AIM program accepted me, but I did create twice before I actually even began my college career. Which I was able to obtain a bachelor's in hospitality management in 2021. And I'm currently, as a master's student, wrapping up my master's in organizational leadership, and where I'm currently working as the graduate employee for Mercer's Learning Support Services. So I am also working, my work revolves around still being interactive and engaging with current AIM students as well. So it's definitely a full circle that I'm able to kind of help teach and navigate up and coming college students who are neurodiverse, just like me, to become successful and actually succeed in college. Because I don't know how, once I leave or once I earn my degree, I don't know what my plans are. But I definitely know that part of me does want to continue becoming an advocate for not just people with autism or Asperger's, but people who identify themselves as neurodiverse. And so this brings me back to like how my education before college, which was really like melted me and shaped me. So I went to the Lab School of Washington, a private school in Washington, D.C. But what they did is that they were able to teach me, and they teach students through curriculum of arts and like through the visual learning of arts is how they really try to create and teach students. So it's not the typical lecture and all. It's interactive, it's hands-on, really hands-on, but they really try to teach in techniques that meet students' needs. And what they say, the way that we have, or at least for me, what I've been able to like see lab school really go straight away from is no longer getting rid of the label of disability, because students who have come to lab school, we are able to say and change the narrative that we have a learning difference, or we are just taught in a different manner that's more suitable to us compared to like public school and all. So it's not, but trying to get rid of that label of disability is a real key aspect that I personally am trying to kind of weave that narrative away from, because I am not physically disabled in any way of my Asperger's and autism like symptoms. It's more internal, so it's not, I can't really show it as much. It's more action that I possess. But this just goes back to not having disability be kind of degrading people who are neurodiverse, who may have way severe symptoms. That's just not the proper narrative, bottom line. So that's what I love. So that's why I love my school that I went to, of lab school. And that's what Mercer's in the AIM program also still does, is they try to teach us through creative means and all. And that is like one of the true like journeys of mine as a continuing like advocate for not just autism and Asperger's, but the entire neurodiverse like scope and umbrella, because I know that there are other diagnoses of people who are neurodiverse that are not getting recognized. So yeah, but that is my story, and so appreciate you listening.
Hello everyone, I'm Alice Wiping from Hong Kong. It's a pleasure to share my journey with you. As an autistic pianist and advanced piano tutor, music has been my guiding light through life's challenges. At birth, complications with the umbilical cord nearly took my life. Growing up, my behaviors diverged from those of other children, making me an enigma to those around me. It wasn't until the age of 8 that I was taken to a doctor and diagnosed with autism. My intellectual capabilities were assessed, revealing a discrepancy between my chronological age and cognitive development. I was deemed to have the intellect of a child, aged 4 years and 8 months. I was incredibly fortunate to have received unwavering support from my family, particularly my mother, who introduced me to the piano, an introduction that transformed my life. As a student, I presented unique challenges to my teachers. Comprehending and following instructions often required more time and patience than usual. This dynamic frequently led to frustration for both my teacher and myself. In my childhood, my struggles were sometimes misconstrued as disobedience, when in reality, I was grappling with comprehension issues. Reflecting on those experiences, I now believe that a willingness to understand individuals like myself, coupled with creative teaching approaches, holds the key to effective support for those with autism. Personally, I've discovered that analogies and the use of imagination greatly enhance my learning process, underscoring the importance of tailored approaches in fostering success on our learning journeys. In the realm of education, autistic individuals often face significant systematic inequalities that impact their access to quality learning opportunities and support services. One particular challenge lies in the area of social interaction and communication. Autistic individuals are often viewed as less capable in these areas, which can limit their opportunities for growth and development. However, through practices and accumulation of experience, autistic individuals too can have great improvements in these aspects. I personally have had remarkable progress through years of ensemble and piano accompanying experience. I was very grateful for the opportunities I had, including being awarded the honorable mention at the second Danube International Concerto Competition and collaborating with Danube Symphony Orchestra in 2017. My journey is a testament to the potential for growth and development that exists within autistic individuals. With the right support and opportunities, we can overcome barriers, challenge stereotypes, and thrive in various aspects of life, including education and beyond. Thank you very much for your kind attention.